Hi, welcome to Di's Home and Garden. Thanks for joining me again. And if this is the first time here, this is just what it says. It's about my home and garden. So we're often out in the garden, we're inside doing crafts, or we're cooking. You can see I've got my apron on today, so we are cooking today. So what are we making? Well, we're making something very simple, but I understand that people are at all different levels of cooking. And there are some people who are just beginners who may not quite know how to do some of the very simple ones. So this is crumbed chicken. So there's not much to it, but I'll show you how I do it. You may like to change it, as with all recipes. We all put our little twist to it and make it the way we like it. So this is the way I do it. So come along with me and we'll see how I do it. So when I make chicken, crumbed chicken, I generally tend to do it in bulk because I find that it freezes really well. So I'll make a whole lot of it and then I'll freeze it, and I put baking paper between each layer that I put in a big container, and that way I can take out just the amount that I need. So that's why you'll see that I am making an awful lot, but as I said, it freezes really well, or I can share it with family and friends. So this is one of the chicken breasts. I've done some already. I actually slice them and make them a bit thinner. So I had a bulk pack, and in that pack there were 4 half chicken breasts. So what I do with a very sharp knife, I slice it, and I just slice each breast into 3. So you can see that's nice and thin. Some people will actually bash it with, a meat mallet and make it thin that way. But I like to do it this way. So that one's a little bit thicker, but still it's quite good. And then we've got our last piece, which doesn't need cutting. So there we have it. So we've got all our chicken all prepared there. The next thing we need to do is to get everything ready for the crumbing process. So let's have a look at what we're going to be doing there. So here we have the things that we're going to use to crumb the chicken with. So first of all, we've got flour. Now I'm doing these gluten-free. You can just do them with ordinary flour and with ordinary breadcrumbs. I've got gluten-free breadcrumbs here that I'm going to be using. But the reason that I do this is that I know that the people who are going to be eating these, there are some issues with gluten. So if I make them gluten-free, then everybody can have them and I don't have to worry about making 2 different batches or anything like that. So the first thing I've got there is some gluten-free flour. Then I've got 6 eggs in a bowl here, and my last bowl is empty. I'm just going to be putting my breadcrumbs in there. So it's not empty anymore. I've just put the breadcrumbs. So I keep this all set up like a little workstation. So there you go. I've got all of the things there that I'm going to be using. And, oh, there's a little bit of eggshell in there. Right, got that out. We just need to beat the eggs. So make sure that your eggs are thoroughly beaten. Everything's mixed in there. Right, that's done. Now with the flour, I like to season it. So just grab a spoon. What I season it with is some chicken stock powder. So you can see I've showed you this before in previous videos. This is a gluten-free and dairy-free. So there's just 2 teaspoons there into my flour. Then I'll put a little bit of pepper, not much because I'm not a fan of pepper, but you use as much as you like. And then I'm using You might have seen a previous video where I had a whole lot of leeks and I dehydrated the leek tops. So I'm using some leek powder here. So that's going to give it a very slight oniony flavour. If you like, you could put some garlic powder in there. Or you may like to even put some herbs in there. This is salt. So I'm just putting some salt into the flour as well. And then I'll just mix all that around. I'll just move those out the way. And just make sure that that's evenly mixed through. Okay, so I've got my workstation here, and the last thing I need on the workstation is a plate. So I've just put a plate at the end there, so that as I work along, I will be putting the chicken, the crumbed chicken at the end. So, first of all, we put this into our flour. Dip it right in, make sure that it's all coated with the flour. Then we'll put it into our egg mixture, our egg wash. Again, making sure that everything's coated, and then into our breadcrumbs. Just pressing it down there, and that's it. So we'll continue with that until I've done them all. I've got those eggshells everywhere. Yeah, we'll finish all that off and then I'll bring you back. Oh, just before I do go, if sometimes I'm coating chicken, it might be drumsticks, something with a bone in, where I want a thicker coating on it. So what I would do at that stage is put it in the flour and the egg. Then I would go back to the flour and to the egg again, and then to the crumbs. But I'm just putting a light coating on this, so I'm just dipping it once into the egg and the flour and the egg. But if you do want a thicker coating, by all means go ahead and dip it twice into your flour and egg before you move on to your breadcrumbs. So there we are. Getting through this. So here we have it all crumbed. Now I've left that in the fridge for about 20 minutes. I'd normally leave it in the fridge for anywhere between 15 minutes and half an hour, and that just helps to firm up the crumbs. And what I'm going to be doing now is to shallow fry that in some oil. Now I'm just using vegetable oil for that. So you can see I'm using vegetable oil, and I do it in my electric fry pan. So the reason I do that is because that's thermostatically controlled, as well as it being a nice big area to be able to put it all in. Being thermostatically controlled, it helps to regulate the heat, and I'm not having to turn the heat up and down and making sure things don't burn. So that's all taken care of. So we'll get that on. So here we go. We just are going to be putting that in. Now you might see some of the pieces I put in might overlap very slightly, but what will happen is as this cooks it actually shrinks, so there'll end up being plenty of room in there for what I put in. So I'm just putting this back into the fridge to keep it refrigerated while I'm cooking that. So there we have it, all the chicken has been cooked, nice and brown and crispy, and that's where I was going to leave the video today. But then I thought, yes, you can eat it like that. It's really nice. I love to have it on a fresh bread roll with some lettuce and mayonnaise. Or you could just have it just like that with a salad or maybe some vegetables. But the other way I like to have it is chicken Parmigiana. So I'm going to take you along and we're going to make the sauce for chicken Parmigiana. So these are the ingredients that we're going to be using. We've got some celery here, some nice finely cut celery. Then we've got an onion and capsicum that's diced. We have some passata at the back, some tomato paste, and there I've got some dried herbs. It's only early spring here in Australia at the moment, and my basil is just seedlings, not ready to pick. So there's some dried basil that I've got from last summer, and there's some parsley there. I have used up all my parsley that's growing in the garden, so I did dry some. You can see that that was done in February. So, and then we've got some chicken stock powder, and we're going to use some water as well because we need to put 1 teaspoon of that into 1 cup of water, and then we also need some oil. So let's get on and see how this is made. Just going to turn the heat on to our saucepan there, and we're going to add some olive oil. About a tablespoon of olive oil in the bottom there. And then we'll add our vegetables. So firstly the onion, the celery, and the capsicum. Just wait until that starts cooking. So that's been cooking now for about 5 minutes and the vegetables have started to soften. And now we just have to add the rest of our ingredients. So let's have a look at that. So we'll add, if you've got chicken stock on hand, then it's 1 cup of chicken stock, but I've mixed the chicken stock powder with some water there. So that's 400 grams of passata or tomato puree. Now I don't like to waste anything, so I'm just going to run some water through that. Just added some water to that and give it a good shake. There we go. Now we're adding some tomato paste. A tablespoon of tomato paste. Some parsley. Some basil leaves. Oh, they smell nice. Gee, that's strong. Now, what's the next thing we need to do? Okay, the only other ingredients that we have is salt and pepper, and we will add those at the end. We'll have a taste of that and we'll add them at the end. Now, I've made this before and I'm sure that I added a can of tomatoes. Chopped tomatoes, so even though my recipe doesn't say it, I'm going to add that to it. So I've got a can of diced tomatoes, so I'm just adding those. This is what I say about that I'll usually change recipes, but I haven't made this for quite some time. Yeah, that looks better. I do remember seeing, here's you, bless you, my dog just sneezed. There we go. Okay, now what we need to do is to simmer that, bring it to a simmer, and simmer it for 30 minutes with the lid on. Then we need to remove the lid and simmer it for 15 minutes to reduce it down so it becomes a thick sauce. So we'll come back when we're at that stage. So you can see how it's thickened up. We've cooked that for 30 minutes with the lid on, and then we removed the lid and we cooked it for another, simmered it for another 15 minutes to reduce it so it's nice and thick. So we'll use that now. Here we go. So I've just put 2 of the crumb chicken onto a tray, and I've put some baking paper on there because it is going to spill over as we cook it in the oven, and that just makes clean up really easy. So the first thing we need to do is to put some Parmesan cheese onto each of those. Now, there we go. Just need to sprinkle some over the top of each of those. And then we need to, I've got the sauce over here. We've got the sauce here, so we just need to spoon our sauce over each one. There's a lot of sauce there, so I don't need to be shy with it. We can put a lot of sauce on there. Now we'll put a little bit more Parmesan cheese on top. And then on top of that, the recipe calls for mozzarella cheese. I don't have mozzarella cheese, I have this pizza cheese. And this is a blend of shredded mozzarella, tasty cheese, and Parmesan cheese. So this will do the trick. So this cheese is frozen. I keep my cheese in the freezer. I don't use a lot of cheese, so to save it going bad and wasting it, I keep it in the freezer and just break off little amounts as I need it. Okay, now the next thing we need to do there is just to pop that into a moderate oven, which is 160 fan force, that's 160 degrees Celsius, until that melts on top, and we'll come back when that's done and have a look. And there you have it, fresh out of the oven, chicken Parmigiana, beautiful. Maybe you'd like to give this a try. Maybe you might change something with it. And if you do, please put it in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you go making this. Thanks for joining me once again. Bye.